Hi there, it's Caroline Kavanagh and I am here today with the very lovely Alan Levi. Now, Alan is a personal trainer and you might be thinking, what on earth has personal training got to do with exam stress? Now, I came across Alan because I know myself, when you're training, it puts your body under stress. And if you're not sleeping well, you can't get your body to perform well. So one of the things that Alan has as part of his program is hormonal optimization. So it's all about the chemistry that's inside your body. And when the chemistry is not performing as it should do, the output, the behaviours that you have aren't going to be working to their optimum as well. So that's why I really wanted to bring Alan into the group today to share his experience, his thoughts on sleep. Now, sleep is so intrinsic to good performance, whether it's physically and also mentally. So with our adolescents that are facing these exams, the chances are their sleeping behaviour is going to be diminishing, and it starts to get into that downward spiral. They sleep less, the chemistry gets imbalanced, they sleep even less, and down, down, down you go. And possibly even for yourself, you're worrying about how your children are doing, and that's affecting your sleep as well. So, Alan, tell us a little bit more about what is this hormonal optimization thing? How does body chemistry impact on sleep?
Well, that's a brilliant question. At the end of the day, it's one of the aspects of training that I think is sometimes so badly overlooked, because if you're getting inadequate sleep, if your hormones are disrupted, for example, you're producing too low dopamine, which is your kind of get and go, and neurotransmitter, or acetylcholine, which is focus and drive, or serotonin, which is your kind of feel good, now I can relax hormone, things fall out of kilter. So you're never going to get the kind of ideal responses to training that you want. If, for example, you're sleeping 3 hours a night, you're going to have real problems with fat loss, for example, because you're going to be in a pro-inflammatory state, your body's not going to be producing enough melatonin, which is the counterpoint to cortisol. It's all about balance, basically. All the hormones need to be balanced. You know, we talk about stress hormone as a negative. It's not. It's what gets us out of bed and gets us going and helps us in fight or flight situations. But more often than not, we get into a situation where there's hyper-arousal, where we're always triggered. It's 9 o'clock at night, somebody said something nasty on Facebook, and something you're like, oh, you know, and you can't sleep. So suddenly the whole system is tipped on its head, and sleep is critical. It is the most important recovery mechanism. You know, we talk about yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, EFT.
Yeah.
Sleep is the most important. If you're getting inadequate sleep, you're going to have real issues with everything. Inflammation, disruptions to your thyroid, disruptions to the stomach function, everything will go out of kilter.
So that they're all very physical things.
Yes.
How does it also impact, I mean, it sounds a bit like a stupid question, because you know if you're tired, you don't think as clearly.
Yeah.
But what is generally happening on that chemical level?
Another good question. There's the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenals. When they get out of kilter, then obviously we've got lots of brain dysfunctions that start occurring. So not least of all, the neurotransmitters will fall out of sync. So it's all about, once again, being in balance. And the two that will probably suffer the most will be your serotonin pools will reduce, so your ability to sleep will become impaired. And also, obviously, like you said, you're not getting up out of bed and just sort of saying, right, let's get on with the day. You're just slamming your hand on the alarm clock 16 times, dragging yourself out of bed. So that tells me straight away that your dopamine levels are reduced, and your acetylcholine, which is concentration, which obviously is going to be key for students, is going to be impaired as well. So all of them, the basic take-home fact is that poor sleep. You know, when we talk about someone like Margaret Thatcher, who was held up as the poster girl.
Yeah.
Really? And to be fair, now this is correlation rather than causation. My position would be, could that have been partially responsible for her Alzheimer's later on? Okay. Brain rusting, literally, that is what it is. You know, build up of amyloid plaque in the brain, lack of sleep. It would not surprise me if that was a key mistake in Manchester. So yeah, sleep key, 8 to 9 hours a night, definitely.
And is that the same for, if we're talking of teenagers, 16, 18, 20,
yeah.
Do they need the same as someone like you and I?
Mums and dads might hate me for saying this, but more forward-thinking schools in the States are very, very pro-active later.
Yeah.
And there's research coming through that does suggest that teenagers particularly, and they're all going to be applauding at this stage, will do better with lying in because they're...
Is that going to bed later and staying later, or is it just more hours?
Yeah, actually, as many hours, so we're still looking at 8 to 9 hours, going to bed later and waking up later.
Right.
Because they just naturally are adjusting. It's part and parcel of the kind of changes in hormonal, hormonal adaptations at that age. So it's normal. So when you've got teenagers, I can't go to sleep, and for people of Caroline and my maturity, we're looking at sort of no maturity, but we're looking at something like in bed ideally at 10 o'clock. How many of us can do that? It's
a conversation about
something else. But and then ideally being asleep by 10:30. Teenagers later won't do them any harm. But we're going to talk about sleep hygiene as well. Because that doesn't mean, oh great, I'm on Facebook till 1 in the morning and playing PlayStation till midnight.
Yes.
That is not a productive segue into sleep. No.
So for us adults, we have some control over the stress in our lives. But obviously, with the children, they have got this horizon of exams coming closer and closer, which is causing these changes in the dopamine and serotonin and things like that. So we have to accept that this is a phase, and a child that may have been sleeping very well now, it's gone wrong, it will come back.
Yeah.
So we have to deal with this period of X amount of weeks until end of June-ish for most people. So if you notice that your child, or even if yourself, is starting to struggle with this, patterns are changing, what are the remedial factors? Accepting that turning everything on its head at this time of their lives is not the right way to go. It's kind of like, if you're here, if you can get there, that's an improvement. If you're here, get a little bit further, going from there to there. Not the right time.
No. And having 2 kids of my own, I know that if I was to make a suggestion to my daughter, once you get past 2, she's like, oh, right, already, I don't want anymore. I would say there are sort of, if we're looking at mind, body, and spirit, and that's very much where my training focuses. It's kind of like looking at the holistic. It's over and overused word, but that is what I do look at. Approach. It is, I would say, there are just 3 key factors that I would look at, and all the other stuff can just be adapted and implemented gradually. Because you're actually like trying to chuck it all in. It's a nightmare, And also, I think we touched on this earlier. I think Amy said in her last talk that sort of thing is going to engender more stress. I completely agree. If you start saying, well, another thing now, all we need to do is work on your sleep hygiene, they're going to be like, enough already. Yeah. So what I would suggest is the first thing to really recognise, and you touched on it brilliantly there, is that this is a passing phase. Yes. This is just a transitional period in their life. So we've got 2 aspects. Depression is sadness and negative belief about things in the past. Anxiety is fear for the future. Both of them are they're not mindful of the now. So we're not present. When you're not present, you're not really revising as effectively, you're not going to be engaged in your studies. So it's very much, what can we do right now, right this second, that you could do as we're talking, that can remedy that issue. And that would be, in my opinion, the simplest thing is a gratitude diary. Okay. Very, very straightforward. You get a nice diary. Don't get just something plain. I've got a very ornate one. It kind of looks very, very like ancient art. Every day, you write down 10 things that are great. Okay. And it's that simple. Why? For those amongst you who are a bit more woo-woo, that, what my personal belief is your thoughts create your reality. Some people might be just going, what? But on the coming from maybe a neuro-linguistic programming side or hypnosis side, what you're doing is having a reframe. So now you're thinking, oh my God, I've got all these things I've got to do. Then you think, well, it's been a really productive day, actually. I've got a lot of the work that I wanted to do done. Charlie said something really nice about me in the lecture. And it's a reframe. What does that do? It drops your cortisol level. So that's what this is all about.
Back to the chemicals.
Back to the chemicals. Yeah. It will reduce that 20-25% in chemical studies. It's not bad for just writing down in a book 10 things that you're grateful for. And if you do want to, and then you can expand on that, maybe what things that you would like in your life that you want to be grateful for.
I can imagine some sort of teenage going, yeah. Well, even just going through that thought process.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that I often do this when I'm brushing my teeth.
Yeah.
It's a 2-minute thing where you've got nothing else to do and there. Just the thought process, is that as good, or does it need to be something tangible?
Something magic happens when you write it down. Okay. Something magic happens when you write it down, which is going to take me on to the next point for people who've kind of got that chattering monkey mind. which I think we all suffer from in some. Yeah.
I think mine's a wacky winner, actually.
But one of the things that you'll find is that, it's when you put it on paper, it becomes reality. We have this thing where it's in our brain, it's an intangible, maybe it's an aesthetic, but when we've written it down, it's concrete. It seems the brain interprets it more as a real thing. But you're right. I would say that if you're writing it down is impractical, I'd much rather somebody was doing it just brushing their teeth.
Yeah.
Now, Tony Robbins said recently in a podcast, which I thought was great, you can't be stressed and grateful simultaneously. It's brake pedal accelerator. Okay, so if you are working on gratitude, and I know it seems like a really trite thing to say, but it's so important. If you're working on that and really, really trying to focus on that in your mind, that will reduce your cortisol. So if nothing else, just take that away and just think, right, if I can just be grateful for the 10 things around me today, and it doesn't have to be anything massive. People always kind of go, but it's not like having a palace or a 10 grand payout. It could be that, somebody just offered you a kindness, gave you their parking space, said, you were short on change in the car, they gave you the extra money. It's just start with the small things, as big things will come. That's definitely a truth I've discovered.
Okay. So moving on to some of the more hygiene factors,
Yeah.
We hear a lot of things. If you Google sleep hygiene, all sorts of things like, don't be on your gizmo within an hour and don't watch TV and blah, blah, blah. However, if you've got a teenager saying, I've got to be on the laptop because I'm revising, how do we balance that out? And what's the real impact of something like a screen with all that, whatever light it's called, going into the mind?
You're absolutely right. And it is a tough one. There has to be a balance. There's got to be a time frame whereby you say, I'm putting down my work, you sit down and maybe dim the lights in the living room or in your bedroom if you're watching TV, and I would definitely recommend a comedy. Not drama, not factual, nothing related to work at all, not news, just something that's funny, that's light, maybe a 20-minute show, whatever suits. Once again, drops cortisol. This is coming back to the biochemistry of the body. Everything to outside of supplementation, which we might get onto, it is the key. There's simple things that we can do every day to change our chemistry. Once again, Tony Robbins, a great idol of mine, talks about getting in state. What you do physically, how you stand, sit, has a massive impact on your state. So I would say blue light has a very negative effect on sleep. Light full stop. When you're asleep, if I shine a torch on your space of your foot, which would be a bit weird with you. The first thing you're probably thinking is, what are you doing in my bedroom? That would be a problem. Restraining order. No, but the point is, one of the things that comes out of that is it will trigger cortisol. Okay, because we're cavemen with cell phones. That's as simple as it gets. We wake up, and then you might think, I'll get back to sleep. It's not that simple. You produce cortisol, you've disrupted your melatonin cycle. Once again, body chemistry is disrupted. Long term, big problems. I think we were getting onto that in the pre-chat that we had, where you get into such a chronic state of stress that your ability to sleep is impaired, which means an increase in stress, which means an increase in your So suddenly you're just thinking to yourself, oh my God, hyperarousal, hypervigilance. So hyperarousal is more the kind of, I can't switch off. Hypervigilance is it time to get up yet? Is it time to get up yet? It's that kind of, sometimes when you've got an early flight or something like that, you just, constantly jerked away. So I would say, basic, simple thing is computers and things like that away. Light out. If you've got a blackout blind, we had this discussion. Blackout blind's ideal because it will just shut out all light. If you're thinking to yourself, I'm not renovating my house, then just 9 masks. So all the teenagers out there are going to look like Noel Coward in their dressing gowns and eye masks, but it's really recommended. It will reduce the amount of light that filters in.
So in terms of helping the teenagers, I'm just trying to think, how can you communicate this to a teenager? It may be restructuring their revision. So if they need to do something on the computer, do that earlier in the evening.
Exactly.
Then if they still want to do another hour or so, it's just looking at notes, reading books that doesn't have the light, but always end the day perhaps with some time that's well away from the screen, even if it's the TV, but make it a comedy. So get into some nice box sets, Netflix, whatever it is, and get something that's going to change the chemistry.
Exactly.
That's what we're onto, isn't it?
That's absolutely it, because it is really that simple. Is that, whether it's anxiety, whether it is, there was a great quote from Dr. Robert Brown a few years ago, which said, depression, Prozac Depression isn't a Prozac deficiency, which I think just sums it up.
Yeah.
So all these things, having to take chemicals to offset brain chemistry is not the answer. These things are latent in the body. They've got up to a critical state. We go into these, kind of embrace it in a way. Your body, you're not anxious, you're not afraid, you're not, all these things are your body's biochemistry saying, we're getting ready to do this to be a success. The problem is we're mistaking it. We're saying this is fit. You talk to any martial artist who's ever gone into the ring, you're not thinking to yourself, oh, this is going to be fun. If somebody look, your feet, your legs are shaking, all of this. But somebody who has ever done that will know that it's something to welcome, because it's just telling you your body is ready, that you're in the state. If you were there very blasé, oh, I'm up now, you'll get knocked out in 3 seconds. So the fact that you're feeling these sensations is not to be disparaged or to be, you don't want to get necessarily rid of them. It's channeling them, focusing them into the correct portion of the day.
It's calibrating, isn't it?
Perfect. Yeah, perfect word.
Yeah. Okay. So we spoke a little bit about what the teenagers can do and the hygiene. So, and the kids have got some bonus ones on the parents here about, I'm allowed to do this, I'm going to get bed later, I'm sleeping. Let's hit them a bit with the other side, mobile phones and social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pulling that phone off of them and saying, right, I don't want Facebook, any of these, Facebook, that's aging me, isn't it? They're all on Snapchat or Instagram, whatever it is now. It is again saying this is just for a finite period.
Yeah.
This is very much what we're talking about with Amy, is you have got a goal. You want to do as well as you can in these exams, and to do that you might need to let go of something else for a period of time. Is the phone the best thing that they can let go of?
Yeah, that will definitely, PlayStation, all of those sort of electronics. I think that not going back to the blue light as well, it's a major disruptor of sleep. So just on that basis alone. Also, the thing is, if you're reading fiction, then obviously there's a big portion of the brain that is ingesting that as this is fiction. Yeah. But like I said to you, I never check Facebook, and I certainly never get into Facebook wars. And I only had one disagreement just a few weeks ago with somebody, and they were actually quite rude. And I remember getting into bed and thinking, this guy's never met me, and that's quite. And something occurred to me, I always recommend. I never get into that sort of situation, so it's quite interesting to me that actually it didn't disrupt my sleep. Anybody knows I sleep quick, but still 5-10 minutes. So there is a lot of negativity on social media. Certainly, one of the things, having young children myself and a young daughter, you do hear about cyberbullying and all of this sort of thing, and somebody being vindictive or placing a malignant statement is disruptive at the very least, even if you've got very thick skin. I would avoid it. Once again, just something that's fictional, that maybe if you're somebody who's artistic, maybe drawing. So taking yourself away from things that are engaging that mindset. Certainly games as well. Computer games are engaging the same kind of cognitive processes that revision are. So they might be more fun, but they're still.
It's something that I see with a lot of the teenagers that I work with. It's the constant comparison.
Yeah.
And they go on the social media like, oh, well, I'm still revising. And it instills that panic. Oh, well, they're doing more work than me. I'm not doing enough. Whereas what they might have achieved in 4 hours, you might have done in 2. Exactly. And I think that's, again, it's another reason to say, okay, we're not taking your phone down, but this is the reason why. Because if you take that panic away, you can actually be more productive.
Exactly.
It's positioning it in a way that, it's not, I'm not punishing you.
No.
I'm helping you to help yourself.
Yeah.
Involving in that decision. So we touched on this. A lot of people think about supplements. If I've got a problem, what pills can I put in? So are there particular things when the body's under stress, going back to the chemistry, that you become depleted in, that perhaps taking some sort of supplement may help you, again, acknowledging that when the exams are over, again, you stop, you review where you're at. So what would be something that may be worth looking at?
Number one, by a country mile, is magnesium.
Okay.
No comparison with any other supplements.
And what does magnesium do?
Magnesium is the mineral of calming. So it calms muscle tension, it calms the nervous system, it calms brain function. So it just increases things like serotonin and GABA pools. It calms not just the cognitive processes, but it also, what's very interesting is that when we're under stress, we excrete minerals So, for example, the more stress you're under, the more people get salt cravings. And you think, oh God, I really need salt and everything. That's usually indicative of somebody who's under a lot of adrenal dysfunction. So teenagers are kind of going on, putting salt. And what I would say is I wouldn't necessarily be concerned about that. I would just make sure it's a good quality salt. So things like Celtic sea salt or Himalayan salt, because they need those minerals because they're obviously patently excreting them. The other thing is, so it will boost that up. So you are going to be excreting it through urine. And the beautiful counterpoint to magnesium is it's kind of slightly adaptogenic because it's getting complex. It's part of the Krebs cycle, which is an energy production cycle in the body responsible for energy production. And so it flares that up, it enhances that. And it means that you will actually be more energetic in the morning and calmer in the evening. So, and it's also what will happen, and this is kind of going off a little bit on a tangent, but what will happen when people are under that stress is they will have more cravings for sweet stuff.
Yeah.
And because that's natural byproduct of stress.
It's the body shouting for it, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's also because insulin is a kind of counterpoint to cortisol. So your body's saying, well, if I can just boost that up, then I'll push the cortisol down. But of course, the kind of sweets that you're having would mean that there's a very quick release, and then the cortisol flows up again. So now you're on the seesaw of eating your body weight in Mars bars, and that. So one of the things that magnesium will do is it'll help with those cravings, and it will also help with insulin management. So you actually, it's a slimming device.
So can you just go into a health food shop and say, can I have some magnesium, please?
No. If I knew that he said with a shameless plug for his own supplement. I do stop. No, but the point is, actually, the truth is there are, to be perfectly blunt with you, there are some supplements which you can get pretty much anywhere, and they are of the same quality. So I'd say, off the top of my head, vitamin C is one of them, ascorbic acid, it's not really that much difference. Things like glutamine, they're a variety that I'd argue that there's not a big discrepancy. However, magnesium, there is. What I mean by that is if you're looking at magnesium that's traditionally sold in health food stores that show their nameless, they're magnesium oxide. Why is that a big deal? It's just really, really poorly absorbed into the body. So you'd have to take massive doses, which would then lead to diarrhea. And it would be the case that just a little bit of magnesium of a good quality brand would be much more efficacious. So I would say for those who are thinking on those lines, I'll keep it simple actually I'm going to go back a little step. To make it so you're not popping pills and you feel like, well, I don't know, that's not something I'm interested in. There's a much simpler way, and probably just as effective or even more effective, is transdermal therapy. So there's a lot of research now saying that stuff that comes into the skin, bypasses the GI tract, is more effective. So I would say get home, as part of your unwinding session, hot bath in Epsom salts would be brilliant. Come out, put a bit of magnesium oil on the back of your knees, just here, the carotid artery here, and then a little notch just here. Reason being that will actually get into the bloodstream not quick because it's very thin layers of skin. So it's just the portion behind the patella.
Yeah.
And just rub that in. 10 sprays, and I would say sometimes that will just do the job on its own. Little caveat is, because I get this question a lot, is people will then text me and go, I put that magnesium oil on and it really burns. That is an absolute telltale sign of magnesium deficiency.
Okay.
So obviously I'm not explaining that would stop your sleep if you're lying there going, the nettles around it. What I recommend then is just put it on as long as you can tolerate and stab it off with a little bit of cotton wool. And that will change. I get clients who 4 to 6 weeks that starts to change. So take home point would be Epsom salt bath. That's easy enough. I mean, even if you wanted to revise while you're doing that, why not? It wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Magnesium oil afterwards, and if you're looking for a good all-round magnesium, sort of across the board that everybody could benefit from, magnesium glycinate, because it's very well tolerated. Yeah. So.
Fantastic. So, just summing this all up, what would be your top 3 tips? So if someone say, right, I've got a teenager, I know they're not sleeping, I'm not sleeping. What are 3 things that you think, right, if you put these 3 things in place, it will help?
Top 3 things are know when to call it a day, and start your sleep hygiene practices. So that you have that does need to be like an alarm on the watch to tell you, right, now's the time to put it away, and I've done. Second one would be more the mind-body kind of aspect, which is the gratitude diary. So 10 points on that, and what you could counterpoint that with is what I call a brain dump. Just write down everything that's in your mind, because when you do that, it just comes from that point of the brain, and the mind now says, oh, we covered that. We don't need to, because a lot of it is that, oh my God, I must remember that. Oh my God, I must remember that.
It's like having that shopping list going into the supermarket, isn't it?
Exactly.
You write down on the got a big whiteboard in our kitchen, I don't need to remember that I need to buy olive oil.
Done.
It's there.
Exactly.
Done.
Yeah. And then the third one would be increasing.
Okay.
So I would say put those in practice, and those would be 3 very, very constructive approaches that you can take, and that would not be expensive and very easy to adapt and adopt and implement very quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alan. I've learned a lot myself today as well. So Alan is based at the Body Lounge in Salisbury, but he's also a member of the Exam Stress 101 group. And I know already, if you have some questions, more questions, perhaps this is throwing up things that you want to ask specifically, pop some posts in the group or PM Alan directly, and he's very kindly offered to help any queries that come through. So I hope you found this valuable. I hope you're not too upset that we've suggested it's okay for your teenagers to stay up a bit longer and have to sleep in.
Fan base now.
Exactly. But remembering this is the phase. This is all about helping you and helping your adolescent, your teenager, get through this phase, and then you can look again. It's a reset once the exams are over. So it's not about this has changed for the rest of life. You might decide that it makes such a difference, it does become a pattern of life. But let's get through this phase now and make it the best that it can possibly be. So thank you very much for sharing this interview with us, and we look forward to talking to you again another time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.